Welcome to Golden Flame Stars. They once defined the sound of generations, guitars that roared, voices that cut through eras, and faces that lit up stages across the world. But time reshapes even the greatest legends. Today, we revisit the rock icons whose music endures while their lives, journeys, and appearances have changed. Join us as we explore how these giants age, evolve, and keep their fire burning bright. Jimmy Page, the sorcerer behind Led Zeppelin's thunderous riffs, reshaped rock with Stairway to Heaven and Whole Lotta Love, blending mystery, power, and virtuosity. Now 81, he rarely performs, living quietly among archives and guitars, a guarded icon whose influence still rumbles through every generation of rock players. Peter Frampton, whose talkbox magic turned Show Me the Way and Do You Feel Like We Do into 70s arena rock landmarks, became a superstar almost overnight. Now 75, he performs sparingly as his health shifts, a gentle, grateful legend savoring each stage moment with fans who never stop cheering. Joe Perry, Aerosmith's Toxic Twin, carved razor-sharp riffs into anthems like Walk This Way and Dream On, blending danger and swagger. Now 75, he still appears on selected tours, moving slower but striking hard, a seasoned guitar warrior who's weathered storms yet refuses to dim his fire. Glenn Frey, the smooth voice co-driving the Eagles' harmony machine, helped craft timeless classics like Take It Easy and Lion Eyes. He passed away in 2016 at 67, complications from pneumonia, his legacy echoing through every dusty road melody and California sunset the Eagles left behind. Bruce Springsteen, the poetic voice of America's working class, turned raw stories into anthems like Born to Run and Dancing in the Dark. Now 76, he appears on select stages with steadier steps, balancing age and health while remaining a steadfast symbol of grit, heart, and the power of honest rock. Sting, with his magnetic voice and sharp songwriting, shaped eras with every breath you take and fields of gold, blending rock, pop, and poetry. Now 74, he still performs selectively, moving with calm confidence, a disciplined artist aging gracefully while refining the spiritual edge that defines his music. David Crosby, the mystical voice of CSN and CSNY, shaped folk rock with Almost Cut My Hair and Deja Vu, even as addiction, feuds, and prison shadowed his brilliance. He died in 2023 at 81, leaving behind harmonies so warm and fragile they still feel like fragile confessions in the dark. Lindsey Buckingham, the restless architect behind Fleetwood Mac's Go Your Own Way and Big Love, fused precision, emotion, and fire into every note. Now 76, he performs selectively, recovering from health scares, yet still chasing perfection, a solitary craftsman whose brilliance helped shape one of rock's most volatile eras. John Oates, the quiet half of Hall & Oates, helped craft polished 80s staples like Maneater and Out of Touch, his harmonies anchoring the duo's sleek sound. Now 77, he performs gently and selectively, living simply and gratefully, while the songs he shaped continue filling radios and memories across generations. Jeff Lynne, the mastermind behind Yellow's lush symphonic rock, gave the world gems like Mr. Blue Sky and Don't Bring Me Down. Now 76, he works mostly in the studio, a soft-spoken perfectionist shaping music from the shadows, still chasing the shimmering soundscapes only he can create. John Anderson, the celestial voice of Yes, lifted progressive rock with Roundabout and owner of A Lonely Heart, wrapping mysticism around soaring melodies. Now 81, he performs when inspired, living quietly and artistically, a gentle dreamer whose high, otherworldly tenor still drifts like a prayer over generations of fans. Ritchie Blackmore, the fiery architect of Smoke on the Water and Man on the Silver Mountain, forged hard rock with elegance and menace. Now 80, he rarely returns to rock, choosing medieval folk projects instead, a mercurial genius content in his own world while his riffs continue shaking stadiums. Keith Richards, the indestructible riff maker of the Rolling Stones, built rock's backbone with Satisfaction and Start Me Up, surviving chaos, addiction, and legend-making excess. Now 81, he plays fewer shows but keeps his guitar close, a living relic of swagger and resilience whose very presence feels like rock history breathing. Ronnie Wood, the grinning, quick-fingered guitarist of the Rolling Stones, energized eras with sparks on Miss You and Stay With Me. Now 78, he balances art, family, and selective touring, a survivor with a painter's heart whose charm and grit still echo through every chord he plays. Ray Davies, the sharp-eyed storyteller of the Kinks, captured British life with classics like You Really Got Me and Waterloo Sunset. Now 81, he lives quietly, writing, observing, and occasionally appearing in public, a wry, timeless craftsman whose influence still ripples through generations of rock writers. John Deacon, Queen's soft-spoken bassist, shaped their sound with Another One Bites the Dust and I Wanna Break Free, blending subtlety with genius. Now 74, he lives in near-total privacy, long retired from music, a gentle figure who stepped away while his songs continue conquering stadiums without him. Ian Anderson, the flute-wielding force of Jethro Tull, turned rock theatrical with Aqualung and Locomotive Breath, mixing folk, prog, and eccentric charm. Now 78, he still performs selectively despite health challenges, a resilient bard whose sharp wit and restless creativity refuse to fade. Stephen Stills, the sharp pen behind Sweet, Judy Blue Eyes, and a driving force of CSN and CSNY, blended folk sweetness with electric bite. Now 80, he appears rarely, his voice softer but spirit intact, a reflective elder statesman whose songs still feel like restless conversations with the past. Rick Wakeman, the wizard of progressive rock, electrified yes and solo stages with sweeping works like Roundabout and Journey to the Center of the Earth. Now 76, he tours occasionally, blending humor with virtuosity, an enduring showman whose capes, keyboards, and grand flair remain unforgettable. Dennis DeYoung, the theatrical heart of Styx, powered hits like Come Sail Away and Babe, with his dramatic voice and lush melodies. Now 78, he performs rarely, focusing on writing and family, a reflective storyteller whose emotional ballads still echo through classic rock airwaves. Robin Zander, Cheap Trick's man of 1,000 voices, powered classics like I Want You to Want Me and Surrender with sharp range and arena rock charisma. Now 72, he still tours with measured intensity, a seasoned frontman balancing nostalgia and grit as generations of fans sing along to every chorus. Sammy Hagar, the red rocker with volcanic energy, fueled anthems like I Can't Drive 55 and Van Halen's Why Can't This Be Love? Now 78, he remains surprisingly active, balancing tequila ventures, selective concerts, and a laid-back coastal life, a survivor who turned chaos into confidence. Carl Palmer, the thunderous drummer of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, pushed progressive rock to extremes with Lucky Man and the epic Carnival 9. Now 75, he still performs with remarkable precision, a disciplined veteran whose technical firepower continues to astonish fans decades after prog's heyday. John Kay, the gravel-voiced leader of Steppenwolf, ignited rock rebellion with Born to Be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride. Now 81, he lives quietly and rarely performs, dedicating time to wildlife causes, a reflective icon whose once ferocious roar still echoes through American rock history. Paul McCartney, the melodic heart of the Beatles and creator of classics like Hey Jude and Let It Be, helped define modern pop and rock songwriting. Now 83, he tours more selectively, a cheerful elder statesman whose voice, bass, and curiosity keep pushing him forward instead of backward. Eric Clapton, the blues-soaked guitar hero behind Layla, Cocaine, and Tears in Heaven, turned personal pain into searing melodies and timeless solos. Now 80, he plays limited tours, balancing nerve issues and age while remaining a reserved legend whose tone still defines electric guitar emotion for players worldwide. Paul Simon, the literary mind behind Simon and Garfunkel and solo landmarks like The Sound of Silence and Graceland, fused folk, pop, and world rhythms into reflective storytelling. Now 84, partially hearing impaired, he appears in intimate concerts, a quiet craftsman endlessly revisiting faith, memory, and meaning on stage today. Elton John hammered piano keys like fireworks while hiding deep insecurity behind outrageous costumes. Offstage, he nearly lost everything to cocaine, alcohol, and bulimia at his peak. Songs like Rocket Man and Your Song came from someone secretly falling apart. Now 78, he sings as a sober survivor, not just a superstar. Bono turned stadium rock into a mix of confession, protest, and prayer. Behind the sunglasses is a Dublin kid marked by his mother's early death and survivor's guilt. With U2, songs like With or Without You and One feel like restless appeals to grace. Now 65, he still chases redemption on every tour. Stevie Nicks rapped mystical lyrics and a husky, trembling voice in shawls and twirls. Behind Fleetwood Mac's glamour were breakups, affairs, and a drug spiral that nearly killed her. Rhiannon and Landslide sounded like spells born from real heartbreak. Now 77, she still sings like a wounded witch. Brian Johnson crashed into AC/DC like a gravel-throated thunderstorm after Bon Scott's death. He carried factory shifts, barband dues, and the fear of replacing a legend. Back in Black became his trial by fire and ultimate victory. Now 78, he still belts like someone who can't believe his luck. Alice Cooper turned horror movie theatrics and a snarling rasp into full-blown shock rock theater. Behind the guillotines, makeup, and fake blood was a shy preacher's kid losing himself to alcohol. He took parents' worst fears and sold them back as anthems like School's Out. Now 77, he lives sober, playful, and strangely wholesome. Bruce Dickinson turned Iron Maiden's galloping anthems into airborne battle cries. Offstage, he flew commercial jets, fenced competitively, and wrote books to outrun boredom. Behind those fearless screams were cancer treatments, broken relationships, and relentless touring. Now 67, he still hits high notes like a man refusing to land. Ronnie James Dio packed a giant, operatic roar into a small, unassuming frame. Before Metal Glory, he sang doo-wop, played tiny clubs, and worked regular jobs just to survive. He died in 2010 at 67, but every devil horns salute still feels like it's quietly whispering his name. Tom Petty sang like a stubborn underdog who refused to back down. Behind that easy drawl were record label fights, a painful divorce, and hidden addiction. Free Fallon and I Won't Back Down sound simple but came from deep scars. He died in 2017 at 66, a rebel whose songs became prayers. Freddie Mercury, Queen's mercurial frontman, fused operatic drama with raw rock swagger. Behind the glitter, he wrestled with secrecy, loneliness, and identity. Born Ferik Bulsara, he turned insecurity into fearless showmanship. He died in 1991 at 45, yet that impossible voice still defines what larger than life sounds like. Kurt Cobain turned pain into poetry and his scream into the sound of a lost generation. Fame, addiction, and the burden of being a movement's voice crushed him from inside. He died in 1994 at 27, leaving songs that felt like confessions. His ghost still hums through bedroom speakers. James Hetfield built Metallica's empire on rage, grief, and guitar thunder. Few knew he grew up without his mother, lost to illness and faith, or that fame nearly destroyed him. His growl in Enter Sandman hides years of addiction and recovery. Now 62, he stands tall, scarred but still roaring for redemption. Eddie Vedder's baritone carried both defiance and doubt. Few knew he spent his youth not knowing his real father, a truth that shaped every song he wrote. In Alive, he turned personal trauma into an anthem of survival. Now 60, he sings softer, wiser, proof that healing, too, can be rock and roll. John Bon Jovi made stadiums believe in faith, love, and the American dream. But behind that smile was a man fighting exhaustion, vocal injuries, and the fear of fading relevance. Livin' on a Prayer wasn't just a hit. It was a reflection of his own perseverance. Now 63, he still belts out hope, one chorus at a time. Axl Rose hit the scene like a street riot on a microphone, swinging between shrieks and tenderness. Childhood trauma and perfectionism fueled both his brilliance and volatility. With Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle and November Rain made him era-defining. Now 63, the voice is rougher, but the fire's still there. Robert Plant took the blues, drenched it in mysticism, and screamed it into the 70s with Led Zeppelin. Fame, car crashes, and the loss of his young son reshaped his wildfire. His banshee wail rewrote rock singing. Now 77, he leans into nuance instead of volume, still unmistakably himself. Mick Jagger turned swagger, sneers, and a rubber-limbed strut into rock's eternal youth. Behind the confidence were business wars, breakups, and the pressure of fronting the Rolling Stones. He learned to turn scandal into fuel, reshaping himself every decade to stay ahead. Now 82, he still stalks the stage like a man outrunning time. Roger Daltrey gave The Who a voice that could rip through speakers and stadiums. Behind the mic tricks was a fighter who once nearly got fired from his own band. Songs like Won't Get Fooled Again turned rage into something huge and communal. Today he sings through hearing loss, still yelling like a man unbroken. Dave Grohl went from the drummer behind Kurt Cobain to a stadium-filling frontman. After Nirvana ended in tragedy, he quietly recorded Foo Fighters' first album almost entirely alone. He turned grief into massive sing-alongs like Everlong and Best of You. Behind the smiles is a man who learned to hide pain inside joy. Chris Cornell carried grunge to cathedral heights with a 4-octave voice, metallic one moment and fragile the next. Behind the calm surface were years of anxiety, addiction, and quiet depression. In Soundgarden, Audioslave, and Solo, he turned pain into melody. He passed away in 2017 at 52, leaving echoes everywhere. Janis Joplin poured every cracked piece of her soul into that sandpaper whale. Offstage, she battled addiction, self-doubt, and the ache of never quite fitting in. From Texas bars to Woodstock, her voice was a howl for misfits. She died at 27, yet her records still feel dangerously, beautifully alive. David Bowie moved through glam, soul, and art rock like a visitor from another planet. Behind each persona was a shy London kid using reinvention to escape ordinary life. Ziggy Stardust and the Thin White Duke were mirrors of his fears and desires. He died in 2016 at 69, still reinventing himself to the end. Tina Turner, the queen of rock and roll. She rose from hardship to global stardom with unstoppable strength and fiery performances. She died in 2023 at 83 after a long illness, leaving behind a legacy of empowerment and resilience. Her voice remains one of the most powerful in rock history. John Lennon, the soulful voice and visionary mind behind the Beatles. He shaped a generation with songs of love and peace like Imagine and All You Need Is Love. He was 40 when he was tragically shot and killed in 1980 outside his New York home by Mark David Chapman, a Disturbed fan. His legacy of hope, peace, and artistic courage still echoes through time. Mick Jagger, the electrifying frontman of the Rolling Stones. He redefined stage presence with his swagger, energy, and charisma. At 82, he still performs worldwide, proving that true rock spirit never fades. His voice and moves remain symbols of rebellion, vitality, and timeless cool. Jim Morrison, the enigmatic frontman of The Doors. He embodied rebellion, poetry, and mystique. Known for his hypnotic stage presence and raw lyrics, he died in 1971 at 27, reportedly from heart failure in Paris. His spirit remains a haunting symbol of freedom and artistic madness. Jimi Hendrix is one of the most influential electric guitarists in the history of popular music and one of the most renowned musicians of the 20th century. His fiery performances and songs like Purple Haze and Hey Joe redefined sound itself. He died in 1970 at 27 from asphyxiation after a drug overdose. Yet his influence still burns bright today. Bob Dylan, the poetic voice of a generation. He blended folk and rock into powerful protest anthems like Blowin' in the Wind. With a career spanning more than 6 decades, he stands as one of the greatest musicians of all time, leaving a lasting impact on music and culture. At 84, he remains an active performer and a Nobel Prize laureate. Rod Stewart, with his raspy voice and magnetic charm, he blended rock, soul, and pop like no other. From Maggie Made It Do You Think I'm Sexy, his hits span generations. At 80, he still tours the world, proving that charisma and rock and roll never grow old. Grace Slick, the trailblazing singer of Jefferson Airplane. She brought fierce intelligence and psychedelic vision to rock. With songs like White Rabbit and Somebody to Love, she captured the spirit of the 1960s. Now 86, she lives privately but remains an icon of artistic freedom. Eric Burdon, the gritty, soulful voice of the Animals. He gave raw emotion to classics like House of the Rising Sun. At 84, he continues to embody the working-class roots of British blues rock, a survivor of the sound that changed the world. Steve Winwood, a prodigy turned legend. He led Traffic and Blind Faith before launching a stellar solo career. With his soulful voice and hits like Higher Love, he became a bridge between rock, soul, and blues. At 77, he remains a master musician and performer. Thank you for watching. From Springsteen's blue-collar anthems to Jimmy Page's thunderous riffs, from Keith Richards' indestructible swagger to the quiet genius of Jeff Lynne, Lindsey Buckingham, and so many more, these legends show that rock never truly ages. If their journeys moved you, like, comment, and share to keep their stories burning on golden flame stars.